Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. We're back. I know that we've had probably about a month's break after our dramatic loss to the arch rivals Collingwood. But as always, I'm joined by Ethan Duffy. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. It's an exciting time of the year. Apart from the actual games, the actual season, I think this part of the year is exciting. You know, names thrown around and stupid bloody rumours popping around on Twitter. But it's all good fun and games at this time of the year.
AFL Trade Radio going off every single day, mate.
Yeah, mate. Of course.
Every single day. I mean, I think it's probably the most exciting time because, as you said, I just think there's like the fake trades of how like a Collingwood Football Club will get like a Paddy Cripps and they'll have to trade like the whole team away to get him over to the Collingwood Footy Club. But we'll move on from that. But so just before we get into some trade talk, obviously this episode's called the Trade Talk, but we'll just touch on a few stuff that's kind of happened within the Carlton Footy Club since we've last recorded. But obviously to start off with the All Australians, I know that we spoke about the 5 squad, but I don't think we actually spoke about the actual 3 All Australians that was actually in the team. But of course, Paddy Cripps, Charlie Curnow, and Adam Sard were all in the team, which I thought was fantastic. It just really just shows how good of a season they all really had, and it was just great to see those sorts of players, especially Charlie Curnow. I mean, I know that you probably have a guy there that probably is the one that is a big step up for the team, but I think Charlie Curnow for me is probably the big one, especially with what he's been through. 2019, 2020, we were thinking, like, I don't know if he's even going to make it back to the team, but now he's back, like he's fit and firing, like he won the Coleman. Of course, it was in the forward pocket, which I don't think Cribbel was too happy about. But so from that team, and obviously from the 3 players from Carlton, who were you most impressed with?
I was pretty impressed with all of them. Obviously, Cripper had the year he had after, I think we all kind of not doubted him, but we just didn't think he would reach the pinnacle again, which this year he exceeded his best, in my personal opinion. I thought it was his best year, considering, as a team we were much better. Obviously, Charlie, like you touched on, Jesus, man. That guy he is the bomb. Got him and Harry up forward. Teams die for one of those types of guys, and we have both of them. So it's good to see both of them work well together, and hopefully next year they can take that into September. And obviously Sardi, I thought was enormous. I thought he was fantastic. Surprised he didn't get higher in the BNF actually. I think he got 6th or 5th or 6th.
Yeah, 6th. Yeah.
Which is still a good result for a halfbacker, considering that the mids and the forwards we had play well this year. But he was phenomenal and really stepped up, which is good. But all worthy All Australians.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Like, it's not like there was any controversy or anything about maybe a Sard getting in. I think that it was just 100%. All those guys were pretty much locks, and I think only the other few ones were maybe like a Maynard, probably one of the guys that was probably arguably shouldn't have been in. Even a Sicily should have been in as well. But Maynard was probably he probably deserved it more than anyone to get that back pocket position. But I think that was great to see, because I know that we've had past seasons of Jacob Weitering. All supporters from us have just been howling, saying, how is Jacob Weitering not in the team? But I think it's just great. And just hopefully we can start to get some players moving forward to really get a spine going, because we've got probably one of the best spines in the AFL going around. But it's good to see, Daff. But we'll move on to the delisting. So obviously this is probably the unfortunate part of the episode. But we just have to thank our service to their services, not ours. So of course Jack Noons, Oscar McDonald, Luke Parks, Will Hayes, and Liam Stocker. Obviously we'll touch on Jack Noons. I think it was probably time. I think he has announced his retirement, but I don't know if maybe like a North Melbourne or someone will pick him up. But other than that, I think the one, I mean, unless there isn't anyone you want to speak about, Duffy Boy, but I think the main name there was probably like a Liam Stocker. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was a bit surprising. You look at it in hindsight now, I think, you go, okay, what was his real role at the club? Obviously it's tough when your team starts to get better, and it's like, what role is he playing? Is he a mid? Is he a defender? Obviously, he's been a defender the last couple of years, which we didn't actually bring him in for. It was a very confusing situation, but I guess you got to bite the bullet sometimes, and he's probably good enough to play AFL level, but is he good enough for our aspirations in terms of premierships, which is realistically what we're going for in the next few years? I feel bad, obviously, especially this other guys. Like Will Hayes was 6 months. He was at the club, which I thought was a bit stiff, but football stiff. Luke Parks is a tough one. I think he got injured, had a pretty long-term injury this year. And just couldn't really crack him the side early in the year. But hats off to him. He worked hard, and when he did get his opportunity, played for the crest on the front. Omac was just injuries. Personally, I think he would have got a contract, but obviously Sammy Durden's kind of taken his spot. And then, like you said, I think Newsy was. You could tell probably later in the year that he was starting to be a bit of a liability. He was good at times, but I think you can't really carry those guys if you really want to reach the top.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And I think, especially with Noons, I think he was probably one of the guys that if we are going to get at Acres, which obviously we'll touch on a little bit later, where does that leave Noons? And also with the soccer, if you've got a guy like Jordan Boyd who's really progressed this season, where does that leave soccer? And you don't want to have a guy like that of his capability kind of there who's playing the VFL. And obviously we'll speak about one of the big players that is obviously in the VFL who can't get in the AFL squad, which is Paddy Dow, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. But would you want to take us through the re-signings, mate, which obviously that has been happening over the past month?
Yeah, there's been some big ones. I'll start with this more short-term ones. Obviously, Marchie put pen to paper with a 1-year deal, which I thought was fantastic. It was good to see him play games for once, put games together in the back end of the year. Matty Owies, 2 years. I think that's reasonable. Not too much, just that good level, so we don't hang on to him for too long. Josh Honey, 1 year, which is he's got a big year ahead of him. I think 2023. I think he really needs to be pushing best 22. Otherwise, I think he might be on the outer at the end of next year. Matty Cottrell, 2 years. He earned it. He is the man. I think he's just a workhorse. I think the year before we kind of knocked him a bit for his skill. I thought his skill was much better this year. Obviously, just finding that role, knowing what to do. And he deserves it 2 years. Sammy Durden, obviously 1 year, just being that defensive stock. I think we kind of need him. Lockie O'Brien, 2 years, which was deserved in my opinion. Jordan Boyd, I thought he was fantastic this year when he played. I thought he was very, very underrated. And obviously this morning, there was huge news in the re-signing department, and it was big Harry Mackay. Shut everyone up. Signs a 7 years. Signed 7-year deal, which takes him through to 2030. What were your thoughts on that, Pato? Because I was pretty ecstatic about it.
Yeah, I was so excited, mate. I really was. Because I know that there were a little bit of Essendon kind of saying, we can get Mackay. Mate, that just puts a line through Essendon probably for the next of the year. I reckon Essendon are going to be wooden spooners next year. But obviously, I think it was Kane Corns that spoke about it on the radio, and he's not too happy about Harry Mackay getting 7 years. And I'm like, and then he kind of spoke about, but he's only won a Coleman. He's only won a Coleman. It's probably the pinnacle of when he a key forward or a forward line, a forward in general, just to try and win a Coleman. Obviously you want to try and win the premierships, but for the individual accolades, I think to win a Coleman is pretty fucking good. So I think if you get a 7-year contract, I think that's one of the big things. But I think a lot of guys have been saying about Harry Mackay, 7 years is probably a little bit too much because he can't kick a set shot. But we all know how talented this guy is. He's a different forward, and I think he plays better with Charlie there, and Charlie plays better with Harry there. We've seen how well Charlie played this year with Harry being there. And I think Harry just probably having another year of just knowing that he's got Charlie there, that will probably help him a lot. But one name there also, and I just have to say Caleb Marchbank, I'm so stoked for him that he got another year. Because probably last year, I think when we did this series last year, we were kind of speaking a bit on Marchie, maybe not getting, if he doesn't put some games together this year, he might be gone at the end of the year. But it's just good that we just gave him one. Because if he's once again got injuries halfway through the year, that will probably be him done. But I think it was good for him that he got those games at the end of the year, and he held his own. That's the thing. So I thought he was great. But obviously we'll move on to the big one. I think probably the biggest news, and I don't know about you, Daff, but I am just so proud of this guy. Obviously the Brownlow medal. I know there were a lot of favourites, like a Lockie Neal, even like a Clayton Oliver was up there. Tuke Miller did really well, but how good it was to see to actually have the last game. I know that the telecast probably made sure that made it happen that they had Cripper as the last one. But when they had two votes, Adam Chera, because I totally forgot that he got best on ground in that game.
Yeah.
Totally forgot. So when he did 2 votes, Adam Chera, I'm like, God, he's got to get a vote, doesn't he? He's got to get a vote, doesn't he? But when he got 3 votes, and just everyone, you could just feel a lot of opposition players that so proud of him as well, because you feel bad for him in a way, because he's played in the system for a long time and he still hasn't played a final. But overall, how stoked are you for Cripper? But also, how do you see this kind of leading his form and hopefully leading this club, hopefully to some success in the near future?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's, for me, when that 3 votes was announced, it was a bit of a weight off the club's shoulders, in my opinion. I think obviously it's an individual accolade, but I feel like that just showed, we are, kind of on the way back. Having the best player in the competition, whether people like it or not, he is the best player in the competition. He is. This season, he was enormous. I think he was the only player to average 25 and a goal a game, which is unbelievable, really. For you look at him and what is he? 6'4". He's playing in the middle, kick goals, run around blokes. But yeah, seriously, just so proud of him. He's the best leader. Obviously, a few days after the Brownlow, I was at the footy fest down at the MCG and actually got a photo with the big fella. And he's just a real down to earth guy. Just a real, he said, have a good night, guys. He didn't need to say it. He's just a leader. He's just a natural leader. And I think, if we ever do win a premiership, I think people will be happy for a person like that to be a premiership captain. But yeah, he's the perfect leader. And Jesus, exciting times. If he's in the form he was this year and next year, watch out, because seriously, finals footy is coming, Pato.
Yeah. Well, you bloody hope so, because with Cripper, as we spoke about before, I think out of everyone who's kind of played AFL this year, especially, he's the one guy that probably deserves it the most. And you can tell that he was probably one of the guys that was hurting the most after the Carlton Collingwood game. Just still memories of that photo of him sitting down on the ground. It still would give me goosebumps still to this day. And it just shows how much we were hurting so much, but imagine him, imagine his teammates, imagine his coaching staff, imagine the club, imagine the staff. You've got to feel for him, because yes, we are selfish and somewhat actually caring about our own feelings as supporters, but it's also their job. So I just couldn't believe. But you can tell that just the hunger, I hope the hunger is there, because you've got that finals taste now and just trying to thrive towards that for next year and actually hopefully play a final series. I think it needs to happen. I think it should happen. I think we're good enough. But obviously we'll move on from that. But awesome stuff, Cripper. I think that was probably not a lot of people really rated him through, at the end of the year. Not a lot of people really had him in contention, but it just shows how important he is to this club. But obviously with John Nichols' medal, we'll just go through a few awards that was on the night. But obviously Corey Durden getting best young player. I think the only other player probably close to that was maybe even a Jesse Motlop. But I think that was great to see Durden actually have that award. But Nick Newman, best clubman award, and I actually put Mr. Underrated, like Nick Newman. I know that we were speaking about during the year, but Nick Newman, he just keeps on doing his stuff. And I think that's probably one of the most underrated awards as well. Like the best clubman award, it probably shows with the peers and the coaching staff that this guy is. I don't know if he's in the leadership group. Do you reckon? Is he in the leadership group?
He might be, but I know he's an assistant coach for the AFLW. So that's probably, stuff like that, putting his time into the other, obviously the AFLW is just huge, because it just shows the one club. And I think he's just, the way he plays his football is very unselfish too, in my opinion. I think he does that off the field as well. So yeah, Mr. Underrated, spot on, Pato.
Yeah. And you kind of see that a lot more now with players that I think it might be the Jim Steins Award, but I know that that's something about the most courageous. But I think something like that, like actually doing stuff in the community, I think that's really good. And I think like players like that, you kind of see it a lot more now often. And it's just great that Nick Newman's kind of finding other passions, also playing a really good role at the Carlton Footy Club. But obviously also Sam Doherty, runner-up, Sam Walsh, third place. And who do you reckon won the medal, Daffy boy? Who do you reckon?
I'm not sure.
I don't know, mate.
Andreas Everett.
Hey, the Everett's back. No, but obviously Cripper, obviously he won the John Nichols medal, but he also won the Players Award and the Coaches Award. So that's just great. So I mean, once again, I think it was probably, it was always going to, imagine if he didn't win it. Imagine if he didn't win the John Nichols medal, but he won the Brownlow. I don't know if it's ever happened.
It does happen. It does happen. It tends to happen. I think because BNF's the point system's different, and obviously the umpires are the ones picking the Brownlow, and sometimes the umpires are a little bit iffy on game days. So, but yeah, no, he deserved it. I think Doc was so close to winning that. I think the crowd were behind him. They wanted him to win. I think Cripper wanted him to win it, showing the selflessness of our leader in Paddy Cripps. He wanted the best for his teammates rather than himself. But I think that's his fourth John Nichols medal.
Yeah, fourth. Yep.
I think John Nichols has 5, so he's edging closer towards Johnny Nichols' record.
Yeah, but we'll move on. So obviously we're getting to the big stuff. So this is the trade talk part of the episode. But we'll start off with the big one. This is probably the one that is a lock. Obviously, we were expecting it to be done today, but that's of course Blake Acres from the Fremantle Footy Club. Daffy boy, let's go into some depth. How do you think the trade will get done?
It's looking like a pretty easy deal. I think it's been talked about for the last few weeks between the two clubs. There's no waiting game. There's no pitching ideas to each other. I think they just want to get the deal done because I know Freo's got plenty of other deals to worry about in the trade period. Obviously, Luke Jackson, and they probably need picks for that and all that type of stuff. So it's been talked about future third rounder, but today being Monday, we're filming this. I think Carlton are waiting on the Bulldogs Liam Jones deal. Obviously, free agency, we get the compensation. So maybe we use that pick on Acres. Or in the end, it's really not that much for a guy who probably mid-year was rated as one of the best wingmen in the league. I think he was in all-Australian form first half of the year. And what are we going to offer him? $300K a year to play on a wing? Like, he's different. He provides something different, I think, for the club too. But what are your thoughts on the overall, going after Acres, Pato?
Well, I think it's the play that we need, Daffy boy. I really think it is. It's because I know that we saw like a best 22 for next year, and obviously that's knowing that. I mean, hopefully, if we do get Acres, he was on the team, but Lockie O'Brien wasn't on the team, and I know that I've always loved having the two wingers of a left footer and a right footer. But if Lockie O'Brien or Matthew Cottrell isn't in this team as a winger, that's fantastic. And maybe that might mean that a Chera or a Walsh might have to become a genuine winger. And let's be real, with their skill set and their tank, they probably can become a genuine winger. I think Walsh is probably more that player that will be a winger, and Chera's probably an inside mid. But I think it's great. It's probably the one player that was probably halfway through the season. A bit of news is coming out that we were looking at this guy, and it's just great that we've got it early because you don't want to drag it on. And of course, we were expecting it to be done today. Let's hope it's done tomorrow, because if it's not done tomorrow and it's just dragging on, that's when I get a little bit nervous. But I'm sure it will get done. But yeah, I just think that it's good that we've got the trade done. I mean, it's not done yet, but we've got a deal set that Fremantle like. So yeah, it's good. But $300K a year, because I don't know what Fremantle offered him, but I think it was around that. So obviously because he's from Melbourne, isn't he? Is he from Melbourne?
I think so.
I think he is.
He obviously initially at the Saints, obviously. I'll actually search this up while we're here.
Yeah, but I think it's just like a guy like Acres is $300K a year, and especially for 3 years, and he's young as well. But I think it's just great.
Yeah, he's from Perth. He
is from Perth.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure once he moved to the Dockers, I think he wasn't overly, I think it was just the one club that wanted him. So obviously he's gone there, and then he's not really, he wants to come back to Melbourne. So obviously Carlton's, taken the opportunity with two hands and brought him in, because I think he's a perfect addition to our team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's different, isn't he? I think he's, we're not talking here, best and fairest winner. We're not talking about any of that stuff. It's more of that, get the job done, George Hewitt type
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we brought George Hewitt in. Who we were talking about Chera the whole offseason, weren't we?
Yeah.
Realistically.
Yeah. Yep.
Obviously, we're talking about, us guys, we're talking about George because, we're nuffies and we're talking about all types of things, Carlton. But, the mainstream media weren't talking about George Hewitt. And his impact was one of the best in the team this year. And Akers comes in, just a nice little addition, improve the team. He's a tallish winger, got good size about him. Runs both ways quite well, hits the scoreboard. He kicked a ripper against us this year. And hopefully he can kick a few for us this year. But yeah, no, it's going to be a good deal. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly there. And I think it's just with Akers, like he will be a best 22 in the Fremantle side, and he probably will be a best 22 in any side in the AFL. So if we're getting him for $300K a year for 3 years, it's just fantastic. So I'm really pleased because I reckon it's probably the one guy that like a hard nut. It's probably a little bit more of a Jack Noons, obviously a younger version of a Jack Noons, but probably a little bit more skillful as well. So I think it's great. But also we'll move on. But I think we will expect Akers to get maybe done in the next few days. But we'll move on. So this guy was probably we were speaking about him. I know that we were like I know the back and forth. Like we were pretty keen on this guy. Fisher Mackesy. I know that I say Mackesy, but I know that a lot of people say McCasey or something. But I'm pretty sure it's Mackesy. But I mean, the club had interest. However, I don't think it's really going anywhere. But also, no other club is really looking at him. And if he's young, and if we can get a key stock like a Mackesy into the team, I think you can't really complain because I don't know, because I know that he had a pretty good first season or second season when he started to get some games together at Adelaide. But overall, Daff, do you want him at the club?
I don't think we need him. I think, like you said, stock, he could definitely be stock, but I just don't think, obviously the interest is weakened. I think we talked to him, a month or so ago, and I think we've just really, I honestly don't think we'll get him. I don't think we'll get him. It's interesting because he was a high pick. I think he was top 10, but he hasn't really, gone to those heights at AFL level, which is interesting. But honestly, like if we get him, we get him. I don't think we will. I think it's probably, a 2 out of 10 chance, 3 out of 10 chance, just due to the interest being, we're just not interested in it anymore. But what are your thoughts, mate? Do you reckon we get him?
I mean, as you said, I don't like. It's probably more down to if we really need him, because if we do have a high draft pick, which we will touch on the draft picks later on, but we're looking at a key defender in the draft, and maybe that's something that we might be more interested in rather than a guy that's maybe been in the system for a few years that hasn't really cracked into the actual system of the AFL, and especially for Adelaide, like it's not like Adelaide are a really great side. And you look at a guy like SDK, who's a young up and coming, and he's won a premiership. So it's not, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're around the same age, if not same age. So I think as you said, I don't know if we really need him. Obviously, if we get him for cheap and we're looking at someone else in the draft, I don't want to get Mackesy and get a key stock in the draft, because why else did we get Sam Durden? So it's just stuff like that. But hopefully, I know that Austin has been great with that. I know that he's been really good with just trying to manage out the stocks, and we don't have too many of the key forwards or too many of the key backs or mids. We just even it out, and I think that's great. But we'll move on from that. But yeah, I don't think I will really expect that to get done. But obviously now we'll move on from more to now more of the players that actually want to. Well, they don't necessarily want to leave. I know that there are some players that might want to leave, but some players that might not be in the Navy Blue next year. But we'll start off with a former pick 3, 2017 or 2018 draft. I think it was the 2017 draft, and I mean, of course, it was Paddy Dow, a guy that we spoke about earlier, just a guy that just simply cannot crack into this side. I don't want him playing as a forward. I want him playing as a midfielder. If you can't crack into the side, especially with re-signing Ed Curnow, where does that fit? So, Daff, what do you reckon? Is he a chance of leaving the Carlton Footy Club?
Very high. Very well, obviously, I think it was 3 weeks ago, it was reported that he wanted to stay and try and get a spot. But I think the list managers have just gone, like, it's going to be tough to get a spot in this midfield we currently have. And obviously, the opportunity has changed from, this year to last year compared to, the midfield stock and due to Chera and Hewitt coming in, and obviously Kennedy improving his form. He's been fantastic. But yeah, I think Paddy will go. I think it'll be a trade. He's not a free agent, which is good for us. We get something in return. It might not be huge, just due to us, not really rating him too highly internally. He had a cracking year at VFL level. So I could see I'd see North Melbourne, maybe. North Melbourne adding to their midfield stock. But other than what do you get from North Melbourne? Do you get a player? Do you get a pick? Personally, I think it's a pick. But what are your thoughts, mate? What do you reckon? Do you reckon it's good Dow's leaving, and what do you reckon we should get in return for him?
I think it's great. I mean, I know that I said a lot during the year. It's a great problem to have that these players aren't playing in the team. And I think it's great. I mean, obviously, I didn't want to delist Dow, but if you can get him out and get something back in return, so we can maybe invest in getting maybe a key forward, because we don't. I mean, hate to say it, love Paddy. I love his skill set. It will crush me to lose a player like that, but it just shows how good our team is. Just shows how good our mid depth is. Like you spoke about it there, Chera addition, Kennedy going to another level, Hewitt going in there. You've got a guy like Brody Kemp who's probably been playing more as a key back, but when we drafted him, he was probably one of those guys that could play in the midfield. And you've got also a guy like, not even to mention Sam fucking Walsh. Like, you've got a guy like that, and you've got so many other players that could transition through that midfield. So, I mean, I won't be disappointed if he does stay. But I just think for his own benefit, I think he has to, because he's better than he's better than VFL. He's better than VFL. Yeah. He should be playing AFL. And unfortunately, he just can't crack into this side. So it's a great problem to have. It's a great problem to have, definitely. All right, so obviously we'll move on now to a player that probably, I mean, I know that I definitely wouldn't want to lose him. I'm not too sure about you, Daffy Boy, but I know when he probably got that opportunity with a few injuries towards the end of the year, I reckon he really held his own. And of course, that player is Will Setterfield. I think the way that he kind of transformed into that inside mid when he got that opportunity towards the end of the year, it just shows that that's his genuine position. I know that we probably tried him halfway through. At the start of the year, I think it was. Probably tried him as a winger, which I know he might not have the tank for that. And let's be real, if we had Cripper on the wing, I don't think that would work either. So I think Setterfield, I don't know. I think obviously he's been told to wait on a new contract until the end of the trade period. So I don't know. After thinking about that and after actually realizing that the club probably isn't too keen on him, does Setterfield actually look towards his options, Daffy Boy?
I think he has to. I think he's very similar to the Dow boat in terms of opportunity. I think he can get more opportunity somewhere else. I'm not, I wouldn't mind him staying. Obviously, come injuries next year or form, and he has good form, and the VFL comes in. I think he could definitely be best 22. It's tough because I really like him. I think in the back end of the year he's really, really good, especially against Melbourne and Collingwood. I thought he really came into his own and kind of went back to that kind of 2020 form in the hub, where I thought he was very, very good and on track to be very, very good. But similar to Dow, I think today something came out today. I think North Melbourne are interested in both Dow and Setterfield. Personally, it wouldn't be bad for them to pick them two up. I think they're very, very good. I think, in terms of stock, I think their midfield's all right North, but having those two come in they could definitely come best 22. They're young enough. They've got experience still. I think Dow played most of his first few years, most games for his first few years, and obviously Setters is a little bit older, but can play some really good footy. But yeah, leaving it to the end of trade period is scary, because for him personally, because you don't know what's going to happen. Carl might offer you a contract and you stay at the club, or I think he's going to look at his options. But personally, I'm 50-50. If he goes, I'm not going to be crying about it. But if he stays, I like it.
Yeah, I think you recapped it perfectly there. And I think what you just said there, I think that's where the club is probably saying it in a different way to explore your options. Because
Yeah,
what happens if he gets to the end of the trade period, still thinking he's playing for the Carlton Footy Club, next minute, or look, we probably don't really need you on the list.
yeah,
Or he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a job. So that's why, probably he actually might need to look towards. Obviously he'll be in talks with the club during the trade period, and if we even draft night as well, like he might need to wait until after the draft, see what we
yeah,
get into the club. But yeah, like it's a scary time, as you said, because it's a guy that kind of his job is in limbo, and it's not a great thing for him. So obviously it's the respectful way to say, look, we still rate you, but we're not going to give you your contract just yet. And I reckon that's of course, yeah, not delisting him. So that's probably the most disrespectful thing to do to a player.
yeah,
Obviously, it has to happen, but also if you're waiting for him to, we're going to look at other players during the trade period and draft. And if you think, and we think that if you're good enough for the list, we're going to have you. So I don't know. I think out of his own respect for himself, I think he might have to look at options and just see what his options are. But yeah, as you said, I think North Melbourne are interested in both. And so if Setterfield was to request a trade in North Melbourne or any other club, what do you think what do you expect back for Setterfield?
Well, the thing about Setterfield, I think it's different to Dow. I think if he's out of contract, I don't know if he's restricted or unrestricted, where he can just go without any compensation. Honestly, I wouldn't complain, because if we're not offering him a contract, why would we play hardball with a club for a trade? You know what I mean? I think that's kind of how it works these days, where, I think it's the same thing with Akers. His deal's not good enough for the Dockers, or that, they're not really offering him a deal, or, a good deal. Why they can't just go, oh, we want a first round pick for Akers. You've got to be a bit of respect between the two clubs and the player too, because the priority is the player. He wants to move somewhere. You've got to make that move happen somehow. And obviously the club's got to be, get something back in return. But if you're not rating the bloke, you don't want to be getting up in arms about a deal. But yeah, I think it's tough. I like Setters. I do like Setters, but there could be a chance he leaves. Even a club like Essendon, they need stocks in the midfield, even though I hate Essendon, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting because you never know. We could go, Lockie Hunter's available.
Yeah.
We'll grab him.
Yep. So do you reckon it's probably more of a pick or a player for Setters?
For Setters, well, if he's restricted, it's going to be not much. It's
Not much
it's
at all.
not much or anything at all, because if he's unrestricted, he can just walk without any trade with nothing,
Yeah.
and we get nothing. Or if he's restricted, are we really getting compensation? Probably not. So it's probably not much at all, really.
Yeah. So hopefully, if he does choose to leave, we can get something back. But let's be real, we probably, as you said perfectly there, I just don't really see it happening. We'll really get much back. So maybe that might lead to, why don't we just keep Setterfield? But if he costs too much, and out of the respect of himself and probably the club as well, he's probably worth a little bit more than what he might actually be given from the Carlton Footy Club. So I don't know. Hopefully, I think it'll be great if he stays. Once again, it's just another stock to this midfield. But yeah, I think my personal opinion is probably he's gone. It's just like it's a hard team to crack into, this midfield depth, Daff. So I reckon it's brilliant. And yeah, obviously all the players that want to leave, and maybe if they do leave, we just wish them all the best, because you kind of know that when you kind of wear the navy blue, even if you want to leave, even if you've been delisted, you've kind of you've given your services to the club. So I think it's great. But we'll move on to the last one. So obviously this one was one of the early ones that I think this was probably a little bit of a fake sort of news, like a fake sort of source, like a trust me bro sort of source, Daffy boy. but obviously we're talking about Zachy Williams. I know that he was considered gettable in the off season, which obviously the club denied the reports straight away. I think it was like maybe a few days after. They just said no, he's staying. So I don't know what his contract is. Is he still contracted?
Yeah, he's definitely contracted.
He's contracted for ages.
It's an absolutely ridiculous deal.
Yeah,
Probably the one bad bit of business from Austin, in my opinion. I think obviously we're just trying to get him over the line, but he's on 900K a year, Pato. He's on
yeah,
900. I think he's had a great year this year when he played. I thought off halfback he's great, but just 900K. He's on 250K more than Sard a year
yeah,
in the same position.
yeah,
I think that's why that kind of rumor came out, because I think people think our salary cap's tight as a fucking I don't know what. But like I think our salary cap's fine, because I think
yeah,
we've structured contracts, back-ended deals, no, front-ended deals, sorry. Especially, the Jack Martin deal. He was on $1 million a year for the first 3 years, but now he's on 250 for the
yeah,
last 2-3 years. So it goes like the salary's fine. We
yeah,
used that money earlier when we could use it
yeah,
to pay him. It's tough to think about. You could do a whole episode on the whole contract status of every player, but yeah, with Zach Williams, I think people thought our salary cap, we need to re-sign guys like Teddy K, Harry, to long term deals, and maybe we get rid of a guy like that who's on 900K, open it up a bit. But personally, I think I thought it was rubbish straight away. But yeah, what club would even want to take on 900K a year? Zach Williams, maybe a North. Maybe give every player to North at this point.
North.
But yeah, no, I think Zach's he's a blue, and hopefully he can really lift his game next year.
Yeah. And you touched on the salary cap there, and I'm like, well, if we're in trouble with the salary cap, didn't we just sign one of the biggest trades of all time with Harry Mackay being a 7-year deal? Like,
Yeah,
obviously, if we were in trouble, we wouldn't be holding off like a Collingwood or an Essendon to sign a big player. We get it done.
yeah,
We get it done. And also, salary caps are kind of evolved around hoping the players actually kind of want to stay there, and they might take a few,
I think they
maybe a
are.
few. Exactly, because I don't know what the exact figure is for Harry Mackay with his deal, but I don't know if you know, but it's kind of more just, I think, 7 years, it's a lot, but obviously we're still comfortable because we still, as you said, we still need to sign guys like the TDKs and all these guys that might be out of contract at the end of this year, if not at the end of this next year as well. So we need that's a thing that I've seen the past few years is how good we've managed that.
Yeah,
We signed Charlie Curnow halfway through the year, and it's just
yeah,
stuff like that because his price probably went up toward after he got signed, it went up. So it's good that we
yeah,
signed him then. And now, say if Nesson wanted him now, it would probably be like a 900 to a million player, and we would probably have to pay that. So that's the thing. So I just think it's great that we signed Harry when we signed Charlie when we did, and of course we had enough in our bank to sign Harry. But obviously that's probably all the players. I mean, I know that we probably expect to do a few episodes like this, trade talk, over the next few months. But obviously right now, that's all the players that we've really kind of been in talks to, maybe coming into the club, but also players that are within the club maybe going out. But obviously just to finalise the episode, obviously the draft picks that we have. So right now, obviously we have pick 10, but that's probably expected to slide to pick 11 just because of Ashcroft going to Brisbane for the father-son for pick 1, which is
yeah,
which is quite unbelievable, but you kind of see it quite often nowadays, don't you? So I think right now also we have the pick 11, but that's also being expected to trade for pick 16 with Collingwood for also a future second round pick, which I think is fantastic.
yeah,
So obviously, no, that's not done yet, but that's the talks. But I think that's a great start because obviously, if we get pick 16, pick 29, pick 63, pick 65, and a future second round next year, we don't need a lot of players now that are young. We need those players that are mid, like probably 25, 26 that can lead us to hopefully finals and maybe even a premiership. But out of those picks, is there anyone that you've really heard about in the draft? I know that I've heard of a key back. I'm going to try and research exactly who it is. But is there anyone that you really think we might need to focus on position-wise?
I think, it's tough in the draft because there's so many names that come out, and some guys are rated really highly by some, pundits, and it's like, oh, he's pick 3, and then no, but Carlton get him at pick 10. But it's really tough. So I'll have to get my head around it over the next month or so, and we'll make sure we do a draft preview because I think Nick Austin today did say that they wanted to take a lot of picks to the draft. Obviously we're not trading any of them this year. The last 2 years we've traded a lot of picks. I think we've only taken 3 draft picks in the last 2 years, which would have been Carol Durden and Jesse Motlop. So, which I think they were great picks. I think they will be good footballers for our football club, and it's huge. It's so important, the draft. I think people, we don't need the drafts. Come 5 years time, you need these guys in your side, and if they develop in a good side, you look at teams like Geelong. Look at SDK. If he was playing for North Melbourne, no way he would be at that level right now. So, in terms of position that we need, maybe defense forward. There's so many like mids. We probably need mids too.
Yeah.
We've got our small forwards, I think, locked in for years. I think obviously Durden and Motlop are very, very young, under 21, both of them. It's tough. It's really tough because we don't know what Austin's thinking. Does he know is going to be gone in 2 years, 3 years time? We need to replace him, or where do we need improvement? I think the midfield, maybe just in terms of stock and just developing a midfielder. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think we need is there a specific position we need to be going after? I think maybe a defender, so we can develop them for a few years, so they don't have to play ones for like a Wiedering did so quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you with all of that, and I think it would be great to get a lot of stocks in. But the main position that I'm thinking about is a ruck. Like, let's be real. We have Pitnet, we have TDK, we have Murkoff, who still hasn't played a game.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind another ruck. An 18 or 19-year-old, get him like a TDK, get him progressed into this, like maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe not even play a game through that 2 or 3 years, but maybe see how Pitnet goes, and if that doesn't work, and maybe even the TDK might transition forward. I don't think he will. I think he's a genuine ruckman, and I think he will be a ruckman for the next 10 years. But it's more trying to get ruck stocks, and I think that's important because that's what held us back this year, and that's what I really saw. And I know that me personally, I like having Silvani as a second ruck, but if we're forced to have Silvani as a first ruck and worrying about a Pitnet getting injured, I don't want that. So if we have the options of having a TDK playing the ruck, Silvani as a second ruck, and having Pitnet, Murkov, and another ruck in the VFL, trying to fight for their spot in the AFL side, I think it's great. So that's probably the one position that I'm really going after. But also a key forward. I don't know why. I mean, I know a lot of people have been like speaking about we don't need another key forward, but what happens if a Harry Mackay goes down? What happens if a Charlie Curnow goes down? Yes, we got Silvani. We might have TDK to go down for, but who else? I know that we've transitioned Camp also to maybe plays a key forward, but is there anyone else that is really capable to be that key forward? So other than that, is there anyone else after saying that? Is there maybe like a transition of thoughts that's thinking through your mind afterwards?
Yeah, I think it's tough because I think if you get drafted as a key forward and you go, shit, like I'm behind Harry and Charlie straight away. Obviously, you got time to develop, so then you can, like, it doesn't have to be it could be a third key forward type forward. So they do come in and can be, put pressure on a Jack Martin's position. But yeah, it's tough. But I really do back in Austin. Like the last 3 years or 2 years he's been at the club since Sauce. Jesus, man. Like the pickups he's had and the deals he's done and the draft picks he's done. He's really left us in good stead. So it's exciting times, Pato. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I just know that, I mean, I'm actually quite surprised that we were kind of wanting to go to the draft this year, but I think it's good because, as you said, we've only had about 3 or 4 picks in the past 2 years. So I think it's good just to kind of not do a rebuild, but just get some young players in, get some young fellas in while you have a while you have an Ed Kerner, while you have a Sam Doherty, while you have a Cripper who's, I mean, I know that Cripper and Doherty still have so many years left, but Kerner and an experienced guy like that, get him in and get those players in and kind of get that sort of experience. And hopefully in a few years' time, I'm just seeing it more for stocks and kind of thinking about it in 3 or 4 years' time because this is what these are what the best clubs do, like a Richmond and a Geelong. Like all these best clubs do this very quietly as well. They kind of get these small players there's just players that just come in and I was like, these guys are freaks and they just do it very quietly because they don't get a lot of injuries, so they aren't forced to play, but they get VFL and they have a great culture, so they want to stay.
Yeah.
So it's just stuff like that. But is there anything else you want to touch on for the draft picks?
Not really. Obviously, I touched on Lockie Hannah quietly just before he wants out of the Western Bulldogs. I think he's exploring his options. Currently, Melbourne leading the race for him. But, geez, if he's on offer for not much, you could stick him on a wing, I reckon. He's a good ball user. And apparently he's, accepting offer, looking at offers that aren't particularly high offers. So that'd be good for us. But other than that, nothing really.
Yeah. And I think he's probably the guy that if he comes in, Lockie O'Brien comes out. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
So, imagine having Lockie Hunter and, I know me personally, I probably don't see it happening. I don't think we have.
Yeah.
I don't think we need him. But if we can get him for maybe not much at all, if he can takes like a pay cut and we can squeeze him into our list, God, he's a pretty capable. He's a pretty capable player, but I think he played in 2016 grand final. He did, didn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And
he's still young, and he's a premiership player. Like, how many players do we have on our list that are premiership players? So I think that would be great. But I think it was a good recap. I think overall, I think we kind of touched on a lot of stuff that kind of has happened since the last time we've filmed. But I think overall, I'm really excited to see what really happens. I think Akers is probably the one player that is the lock. And obviously, we'll just see what kind of eventuates over the next few days and few weeks. But I'm excited, Daff. I really am. I know that the hurt's still there from obviously that round 23 and that choke with the last few rounds, but I think it's great. I think it's great to have that hunger going into preseason and hopefully into a great 2023 season campaign. But other than that, is there anything else you want to add, Daffy boy?
No, mate, all good.
Well, it's been great to be back. It's great to be back. But obviously we'll try and have a few more episodes over the next few weeks and months, obviously with Trade Talk. And we'll also try and touch on, as you said during the episode, just a draft pick sort of episode. Just try and see what happens with the draft and who we have our eyes on. But other than that, I think we just have to say, up the Baggers!